Very good. Good morning, everyone. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. It's been a great morning since 4 o'clock this morning. I've definitely enjoyed this a lot. So,
So,
okay, now I lost it.
can you try that once again?
I will do that. I will do that. You took the control away from me. I hope I didn't say anything unsuitable. I'm so sorry if I did.
No, that was my bad. Sorry.
Okay, excellent. Yes, very good. So my name is Kimmo Kuortti. I work at the Oulu University of Applied Sciences. Earlier worked at the University of Oulu for a long time, working as a teacher, administrator, and international relations director, and now currently work in a teacher education college. So my job, what I do mainly, is train teachers who want to become especially vocational teachers. So that's a special area in Finland. We have a teacher education system where everybody has to have a master's in education or in the field that they're teaching in. And so I'm training vocational teacher educators and designing programs also for abroad. That's very briefly about me. If you want to see something more, then you can head to my LinkedIn profile, for instance. What I'm talking about today is not so much about tips and tricks, let's put it that way, of online teaching. There'll be some small things there maybe, and in questions, obviously, you can ask more. We train vocational teachers mainly online. So my group, for instance, which is about 20 students from all over Finland and abroad, is almost entirely online. We have 2 face-to-face meetings every year, one at the end of August and one in January. The rest of our work takes place online. So we do a lot of online teaching all year round, also in normal circumstances, let's put it that way. Our students were therefore quite well prepared when the coronavirus hit the world. They normally, at this time of the year, are doing teaching practice, and in normal circumstances, their teaching practice is regular teaching practice at a school, even though we work mainly online in the autumn term. However, since we work so much online, all of their teaching practices now had to be transferred online, and they were quite happy about that. But we have talked about a lot of things with our students, and I'm touching upon those things here in that presentation. These are practicing teachers and teacher students wanting to become teachers who were faced with this situation, and because like all of us who are teachers, we're very engaged. They also have made very, very acute observations about how things are. I'm simply, let's see. Okay, so there's a waiting room info here for me, so I'm just ignoring that. And let me see.
Yeah, you can ignore that. You can continue with the presentation. I'm taking care of that.
Okay, okay, excellent. It's just that the I can't get to the little signs where I can move forward and backward in my presentation.
That's you could use your arrow keys. I think the mouse cursor doesn't show when you are presenting.
Okay, now it's moving. Okay, it didn't move before. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Preparing. So I'm simply saying a couple of things about how our education works, but this is very, very brief. So we prepare future teachers. We have a competence-based orientation and competence-based curriculum. We don't do lectures. There are hardly any lectures at all. Almost all the teaching that is done through the students themselves. So in a flipped classroom, I don't know if you know that, but we can talk about that later, flipped classroom model where the students actually themselves are teaching the things each other with the help and coaching of tutors. We prepare with a lot, like I said, digital tools, and We offer people both knowledge and both skills about different tools, different apps, appropriate pedagogy. And always the point is to facilitate learning. I think this ties well together with what we heard this morning as well. It's always the focus is to facilitate learning. What can I do to help people to learn? And we do a lot of practice. Attitudes is extremely important. So towards using digital tools for learning, and this is a very, very important point and was touched upon previous speakers as well. What is our attitude about using digital tools? Also, we equip people when we want to stress that people need to be continuously developing as professionals. This is a very important attitude for anyone who is a teacher. And also these attitudes we train through practice. What we aim at, I would say, in the long run is always the resilience of a teacher who is capable of developing themselves, moving forward, changing when the times change, changing in crisis like we have now, for instance. And the resilience is something that I touch upon a bit later. That's our curriculum, simply showing you briefly what it is. It looks like a list of courses, but these are not courses. These are competencies. So that's a different approach. Okay, there are two perspectives in my presentation. I say main things, and the first one is the roles of educational institutions and teachers in addition to teaching. So we've talked a lot about this with our students and the community. So in the crisis situation, we've now started to notice better certain roles that teachers have apart from teaching and facilitating learning. And the second thing that we've noticed is the difference between what we could call, I mean, this is not a term necessarily that is a fixed or used that much, but we could talk about emergency online teaching and its difference to online facilitated learning. Now, in the keynotes and in the previous, the Jennifer's presentation, the great thing was that, of course, we were talking about, and they were talking about, really online facilitated learning. Really, how do you teach in an engaging way and offer a pedagogically sound online learning experience? However, the fact is that we should not forget that we have the entire world, not just a few excellent teachers who have had to move online all of a sudden, but the entire world is massively in all levels from uh, uh, primary schools to all the way to universities moving online. And not everybody is equipped in a similar way. And there are different factors in the game. I'm going to touch upon them. So the roles of school and teacher, and by school here, I refer to primary schools, secondary schools, even universities. Of course, the thing that we know about and we as teachers are mostly engaged in at an everyday is the facilitation of learning. Teacher is there so that someone can learn better, learn more effectively, whatever. However, teachers in schools are in almost, I would say, or in fact are in all countries, either a openly declared part of a welfare service, or they are that in a latent manner. But schools always serve a kind of a welfare service point of view. Schools in a lot of countries offer both food and shelter, even in a situation where food is not, or if you pay for the food. I'm not meaning that schools would offer free lunches or anything like that, but schools offer typically a protected environment where people can feel safe and learn. Of course, learning is the main purpose, if you like, but the other purposes like offering shelter and a safe place is extremely important and should not be downplayed. Schools have what is called a container function. Primary schools are especially a good example of that. I mean, kids are at school so that the parents can do something else. Put it in a very blunt way. They usually that they can go to work, for instance. Um, and that is a really important function, even for other school levels. Let me see. And there is the state through the schooling system offers, we could say, offers a certain service to the families. And let me just check my notes here. And schools in a lot of countries, once again, especially in the primary area, obviously are in a way equalizing things out. Even in a system where you have private schools and public schools, schools to an extent always have an equalizing role. People are gathered to schools from various backgrounds, and school is a school and teaching are both, they're both places and routines. A lot of routines happen, and school, like I said earlier, is a safe place as well. Now, in the current situation, a lot of these other functions have almost gone. We could say they've almost gone. Schools are closed. There is no place where to go to physically. In a lot of countries, school lunch is extremely important, and we have situations where the families are not able to take care of that when the kids are at home. So many of these things now all of a sudden are diminishing, and that can cause a lot of problems. We can ask, what makes learning possible? If this does not be a presentation, I would start asking you, or I would put you in groups of 2 in the breakout rooms where you could have a chat about that. But we don't have time for that right now. I love breakout rooms, and I use them a lot all the time in my teaching. But here, how I formulated this when we were talking with our students is that it of course, if you have a poorly planned online teaching or remote teaching, even if you want to call it like that, if it's poorly planned, in a hurry, teacher not knowing what they do, kids not knowing, students knowing, of course that can be a problem for learning. And it's true, of course, it's not optimal for learning. But the other effects, the other effects can in fact be a lot more detrimental, like the falling apart of those functions that I talked about earlier, which we normally don't even think about. We don't see them. Those effects can in fact, those support structures can in fact be very detrimental also for the learning. So what makes learning possible is a lot more complicated question than saying that you've got good online tools and a great pedagogy, which is important, obviously. And as a teacher educator, I will stress that always. I know these things might sound a little bit sad and dramatic, but we have encountered in Finland already situations where teachers are saying they haven't been able to contact a pupil or a student for several days. A pupil or a student that would otherwise come to school, be physically there, they've not been able to be in contact with them. Families are having all kinds of problems. It's a very stressful situation for families and children and students as well, if they live with their parents, are in the middle of a very complex challenging situation, and they should be learning and going to school, if you like, at the same time. This is something that we've talked a lot about, and we've been thinking about what are the options, how can we facilitate, help that in that situation. The other point that I mentioned, the emergency online teaching versus online facilitated learning, I think it's an important perspective and a huge potential. So a lot of teachers in schools have been very suddenly forced to change. And that's very different from a planned pedagogical strategy where you plan your online teaching, you have time for your planning of your online teaching, and you can maybe even pilot it if you like. Very different situation to what people have encountered now. A lot of teachers in the universities have other duties as well. So if you've planned your lectures, let's put it this way, as a normal lecture in a lecture hall, and it's all said, you've all planned it and all done. You've also planned to finish an article, do a research project, and so on and so forth. And now all of a sudden, you have to redesign your teaching. That big chunk which you thought you're going to deliver as a lecture, of course, causes a huge amount of stress and can be hugely problematic. And we need to understand the agony of teachers in that situation. And you can imagine a teacher student, our student who's training in a school, who was planning to do something and had to change everything. So the future, however, in this respect, I think is the important and interesting part is, are we going to simply go back to normal, whatever that is? Everybody talks about new normal nowadays anyway. Or are we going to explore further? So now that we've, a lot of teachers, all of the teachers have been forced to take up digital tools and online teaching. Now, this is actually a huge potential. Now, a lot of people who have not been doing online teaching using digital tools before are actually discovering that, well, technically, these are not that difficult. They're not that difficult. And there are a lot of resources available everywhere. So now is a great time to make online teaching a bit more of a business as usual, a regular practice. I'm not saying that everybody move online, everything, but it's a great time to focus on that. So the schools, the school management, teachers unions have a huge opportunity here of furthering this in this situation. I see this as a very big opportunity. So we have a potential of increased, what I call increased pedagogical resilience. Pedagogical resilience meaning that if you encounter a problem pedagogically in learning, you're able to find ways to work still. And in a way, a pedagogical supply security. So no matter what happens, we have a pedagogical supply that we can draw from. We have a set of tools and things. We're not caught by surprise anymore. So I see these as a big potential in that way. And really, the question also with our students became, why are they actually teachers? And this is what one of my students said. After she had to change all her teaching practice all of a sudden and had taught her first online class with 30 students. I was monitoring that online. So as a tutor, we follow up our students' practice. And she was saying that, well, now I really know why I wanted to be teacher. She was energized by this situation and really wanted to solve this dilemma of how can I make my online teaching engaging. And that's an important sign of a resilience in the vocation, saying like, this is why I'm a teacher, because I want to facilitate learning whatever happens. and that was a very interesting discussion. And I think now that we when you who are participating, there are many teachers here. Um, Now it's for us, the question is how to keep on being active in online teaching, how to share what we know now with other teachers. And you are definitely, you are some of the one of those trailblazers who can help other teachers and your communities, because you're engaged and you're really interested and you're a huge potential. But then going finally back to the question of the other forms of support that schools offer. Now we have a huge challenge as well of thinking about, now that things are online and maybe in the future as well, how do we offer the support which is lacking the other functions that I talked about of school? Special needs students, who's going to help them out? How can we find ways? Maybe we have to redefine a little bit how teacher uses their time in teaching or support functions. But those are the things that the crisis can teach us, and we have to make sure that we learn those lessons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kimmo. Yeah, someone has already said a powerful story indeed in the chat room. Sailendra has already shown a query about, yeah, also Milan, like, can you elaborate on the container function that you were talking about? Maybe give some examples is what they are saying.
Right. Yeah. Oh, the container function. I think that's basically an old concept and has been in the politics and sociology side of studying school and learning. Container function basically means simply that your children or your students as well, or a certain part of population, if you like, it can be any of these, is in a certain place at a certain time doing something which enables others to do something else. So it sounds a bit mechanistical, but yes, kids are contained in the school so that their parents can go and work, because otherwise they would not be able to work. And of course, the container function developed with the industrialization. I mean, the development school system is of course part of that as well, because in the past, the kids would be at home with the parents, working on the farm or whatever it was. They would be there. They would all be engaged in the same thing. Nowadays, kids are in the container, if you like, and the parents can do something else. But simply as that. I hope that clarifies a little bit.
Yeah, are there any more questions? What questions do you have? You can raise your hands or you can type in the chat. I'm following both of those.
But what I had a short chat in the, like, I can say a couple of things if people are still thinking about the questions. I had a short chat that we had in the breakout room when we were showing the object that we shows. Everybody was a teacher in that chat room, and I guess a lot of people are here. And I really mean this importance of people like you who take part in educational events like this one, and who are clearly interested in online learning and from different sides of online learning. And you can be the trailblazers of the next phase when the new normal comes, so to speak. Because like I said, you are the ones who can teach others, who can carry on the message of saying, like, yeah, I taught online all this time and I learned all these tools. I hadn't used them that much before. They're not that difficult. You can learn them and really make online learning a meaningful thing for a lot more people. That's of course what is important. I'm not an evangelist for online learning, although I do it all the time. That's absolutely not. It has to be pedagogically meaningful. And And the fact that you are here is a testimonial to that, that you are interested definitely in exactly like that. We listened to the presentations, two presentations in the morning, and I think those were absolutely wonderful presentations for anyone. I'm going to share those recordings. I mean, as much as I can, if I have the permission. I don't know. Maybe Utkum can give me a permission to share them. And but those were wonderful presentations, and I'm really happy that there are so many people here who are interested in these
Yeah,
things.
Kimmo, we have a question. Uh, I remember in your slides you were talking about planned online learning versus emergency
Mm.
online learning. So Prakash here has a question for you. Like, is online teaching now different than online before for you? And if yes, then how?
Yeah, great. It's a it's a it's a great question. Um, on the surface, yeah, I love that question because I've thought about that. On the surface, it's not different because, like I said, in my teaching, it's online almost 100% anyway. The teacher education program focuses heavily on online teaching. Synchronous online teaching, however, yes, it's almost face to face, but still, and we carried on. We simply carried on with what we were doing, but it changed a lot of the teaching practice. So it changed my daily routine very clearly. I would not go to the school to tutor that student teacher. No, I would stay at home and do what we're doing now. I would just watch her teach and her guiding teacher at school to work together. So it's changed that way. But your question has a deeper, I interpret it in a deeper way because it this crisis changed made my thinking of online teaching and learning a lot deeper, and it took it to those directions that I was talking about, which was the functions, the other functions of teachers and schools than just simply, and I'm not saying it's simple, but than just only facilitating learning as such, or let's say like transmitting your subject knowledge or whatever, whichever way you want to define teaching. So it it the crisis took my thinking towards these other directions and made it very clear that we need to talk actually a lot more about those things with our teacher students than we have done before. So the answer is, at the surface, probably not a big change, but on a different level, definitely a big change. Thanks for a great question. It was absolutely lovely.
Kimmo, we have one more from Sunus. He is asking, what suggestions can you give us as teachers who are trying to integrate our pedagogy with technology while we can't have all of the students online? That's one of the problems I was also facing in my class. Like you mentioned in your presentations as well, like we are not being able to reach all of our students right now.
Yeah.
And when all of them are not online, how to integrate pedagogy with technology? And do you have any suggestions from your experience?
Yeah, that's exactly. It's a really really important question once again. So we are risking losing learners. We are really seriously, and especially if we go to the primary level, we really are facing major problems if we lose the pupils. We simply, if we can't connect with them, and I mean simply not connect with them. There's no message. There's no answer. You send them a WhatsApp message or whatever, nothing happens. So that becomes a really big question. Of course, in many of these situations, well, it varies a little bit from the school level to school level. We talk about primary, when we clearly need to connect with the parents. We simply have to keep on connecting with parents, and we can have parents teachers meetings that we've had in the past. Well, we obviously have to have them online nowadays. Then that's a fact. So you absolutely have to make sure that you can establish that link. Okay, if we talk about adult learners, if I talk about my students who are actually all adults, they have a vocational education in the background, a bachelor's degree, and then want to become teachers. Those people are independent people, typically on their own. Uh, the way what we try to do actually relates to how to make engaging online teaching as well, and it's the learner to learner engagement. We use that a lot. So right from the beginning, we set people up also in smaller groups that are required to work outside of the online, so outside of our facilitated online. Nowadays, of course, they would not be able to meet face to face. They would also have to meet online, but we try to make sure that there's a lot of peer-to-peer contact and like a social cohesion through that as well, so that the only contact point is not the students to these sessions that we have, but there are other contact points where they need to engage. But that is it is a really difficult question, and it is my responsibility as a teacher is to use all possible means of getting into contact with the person or student or pupil who's not responding, and trying to understand, first of all, what the matter is. If there's a problem, sometimes nothing is a problem. It might be that people are following a flexible study path. They're doing something slightly differently, which in our case is a viable option. But all possible means, I think you must use. It's a lot of stress. I think it is a bit stressful, but simply needs to be done. I'm sorry, I don't have a toolkit or a simple answer to this question. It's a tough question. If anyone else in the audience has, this is of course what a teacher always needs to do if you can't provide a very simple and clear answer yourself. What about anyone else in the audience? Can anyone else say something to this? Actually, a burning problem.
Yeah, um, we have one from Madhav Neupani, sir. He says that at times or unprecedented crisis like this, as of now, we are more than just subject teachers. We are guardians, we are counselors, we are the support system.
Yeah.
Fundamental qualities like love, empathy, and compassion are even more relevant now, is what his idea is.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% true. All those qualities are important, of course, always between humans. But you are so right. You are absolutely right, because those are the resources. Let's put it this way: that
Mhm.
you can and you must in this situation actually use to compensate for the lack or diminishing of those functions that I mentioned earlier that a regular campus-based physical school has. And those resources that you mentioned become especially important. I think it's very well put.
Yeah. Um, we have one more from Ruchakzi. He says, students' expectation as well as experience on online learning is different than how we deliver now. There is a huge difference in attention span, discipline,
Yeah.
and concentration due to this difference. Um, how do you think college management can help in these issues as both teachers and students who are struggling with this? Did you have any experience with college management providing you support, or where you felt
Yeah.
that support was lacking or support was great?
Yeah, that's absolutely very important. Of course, the attention span. There's been a lot of things. I mean, I'll touch on that first. I mean, there are a lot of techniques in the earlier presentations. We already heard about that. About obviously, if a college is requiring all of their students to follow lectures on Zoom, simple frontal lectures on Zoom for 6 to 7 hours per day or 8 hours per day. Obviously, that's not the way to do it. That's horrible. And unfortunately, I know it has happened in some. I mean, seriously, in some really good institutions in Finland, for instance. And that is where someone should definitely have an oversight, or what I like to call a pedagogical leadership in the institution. I mean, it can be teachers themselves, and teachers are great leaders normally, absolutely. But someone needs to take a look at the curriculum and say, like, heavens, we're delivering all of our content now on Zoom, and you're all lecturing. That you can't do that. So there has to be someone who, if it doesn't happen automatically, if it doesn't happen naturally, who says, hey, we need to change the mode of delivery. We need to do something else and introduce whatever it is, different tools. And all the institutions have teachers who are trailblazers, who are able to help others. And once again, if your college management knows your staff and knows their work, then they also have identified those people. I mean, if you don't have other resources, they know that, hey, we've got Jennifer and we've got Bill, and then there's Anne, and they all teach in a good way. They've received good feedback. Their online teaching is good. We need to make them to help others, for instance. And that's exactly what we have done in my college. We established immediately a helpline for the entire University of Applied Sciences. So because we use the tools a lot, we simply organized ourselves and said, like, okay, we know a lot of people are struggling. We'll start a helpline where we've got 1 hour to 2 hour slots where it doesn't become a big burden for any of us. And we offer pedagogical and a little bit of technical help also for the other departments, the engineering department or the healthcare department teachers, how to teach online to help them with their questions. So yeah, I think that's the college management needs to know what their people do and how they do it, and then intervene if that's necessary. That's what I would say. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Kimmo. Sunos has an idea about how he feels that the teachers have a lot of anxiety about online teaching right now, especially when you were talking about we are forced to go online right now because of the situation that the world is facing. And just like students, teachers are also anxious, and teachers also need a safe feeling space. They are not comfortable experimenting it with the students.
Right.
So, and his idea is to, I think we need to inspire and motivate each other in taking the first step with constructive feedback. This is one of the things that we are trying to create with this conference as well. And what we are doing is whenever we are free at our institution, whoever is free, we have a WhatsApp group. If I come up with something, I invite a few of my colleagues and try out certain things, and they give me feedback. They do the same. I join and give feedback. So that's how we are addressing it right now. Do you have any experience with that? Like, because you are teaching teachers online, do teachers who are used to teaching offline, are they asking for more feedback from you, or are they asking you more questions now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, in our cohort, I do have people who are a bit more senior than others, and who have a teacher experience as an unqualified teacher, and they've come to us to get the diploma. And yes, absolutely, they definitely need more assistance. But to the question of, yes, you're absolutely right. It's a great point that teachers also need if you like, a safe place. It's a good point. We shouldn't require people to stress out terribly in order to do something. And I'm telling you something that I did when we have our helpline. You see, I have colleagues who are so much more advanced than I am with all the technical stuff. They use billions of apps and different computer things. They're extremely good. You see what I did? I went to our helpline, our own helpline, and when there were quiet moments, when no one outside of our teachers group was asking help, I would ask. I would use the knowledge of those colleagues, and a lot of us did the same. So on the quiet moments when no one was asking us how to do something pedagogically online, we were discussing among ourselves. Have you used that? Have you been doing that? How does that work? Hey, where's that button in Zoom where you can blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So we use that among ourselves. And if you've got groups like that, like you just mentioned, that's a great resource. At least in our community, people are also not afraid of asking and showing that they don't know something. That's of course very important. It's one of those things that we teach our teachers as well. Teachers showing that you don't know something is not a problem. That's not a problem. You just need to be open about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kimmo. We have more ideas and more questions, but in the interest of time, I'm so sorry I could not attend to all of your ideas and questions. But I think we have been saving the chats as well, and that could probably be
Okay,
incorporated into the conference proceedings later on.
that would be great. If you've got questions, if you're saving those questions, that'd be very helpful. I try and take a look at them.
Yeah, thank you, Kimmo, for providing us insight into how Finland is dealing with it. Finland is always talked about when we talk about education these days. So thank you for your time, and thank you for waking up at, I think, 3:30.
Oh, it was
And
only 3:30. Not that bad. Not that bad. Come on. And it's already 7:45 now, and sun is shining. It's not a problem. It's cool.
yeah, okay, thank you so
You
much.
deserve
Thank
some.
you.
Yeah,
Kimmo,
can
you
we clap?
deserve some.
Yeah, I can already see a lot of claps.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the question. Thanks for taking part. That was very nice.
Yep.